share my screen then. Let's go. Okay, so yeah, thank you everyone for coming. My name is Jason. I'm the co-founder of Automation Made Simple with Yvonne and also No Code VA. And yeah, very recently now certified Zapier expert, which I'm very happy about. And I get to display the big green badge. But more importantly, it's the experience I've gained over the last 2 or 3 years. I've only been working with it 2 years heavily, and started just solving my own problems with Zapier, and then working with clients and just learn by using really and solving the problems and the challenges with Zapier. So it's a tool that anybody can start to use and get proficient with pretty quickly. I'm not a developer, I've got no background in programming or anything like that. It's just from using the tool. And so with Automation Made Simple, the company that we run, we help businesses, small, medium businesses, map out their workflows and then use tools like Zapier to automate the repetitive tasks. We also run No Code VA, which a lot of you are in the Facebook group, but this is a community of virtual assistants, business managers, online business managers, freelancers, anyone really who wants to learn how to use these tools and add them to their kind of, toolkit. So if we just look at who this is for, this seminar, so this is totally for beginners. So if you've never used Zapier before, never seen it, this is for you, it's fine. We're going to explain everything. Previous knowledge is always useful, but it's not required by any means. So if you have used Zapier before and you use it, then hopefully you'll get something out of this, or maybe I can answer some questions later. So what are we going to cover? So we'll look at what Zapier is and when to use it. We'll look at the pricing plans. We'll look at the overview, the interface and things, and then we'll just build a Zap. We'll build an automation using Zapier. So first of all, this is the definition that Zapier gives. So it's an online automation tool that connects your apps and services. You can connect 2 or more apps to automate repetitive tasks without coding or relying on developers to build integration. So the way to think about this is, maybe 5-10 years ago, if we wanted software, we had to install it on our devices and it was a pain and it took ages. Now we're fortunate enough to have all these online services, so we can have a CRM, our account system, mailing systems, all these different tools. We just pay as we go, subscription services, and up and running in minutes. The problem is that we have information in all of these different systems and they don't talk to each other. So we'll have contacts spread across many different systems. So this is the problem Zapier solves really, by enabling you to connect all of these systems and effectively have one system that moves information around. So you're not repeating things like adding contacts into multiple different systems that you use. So we're just going to look at pricing because we deal with small businesses, medium-sized businesses, freelancers. And as we all know, pricing for subscriptions soon mounts up. We all know that, you start off with a few subscriptions and it builds and builds, and then you're paying a lot of money in subscription. So it's all about justifying the subscription. And so with Zapier, we can start for free, which is great. A couple of things we need to define before we talk about the other two. We're not going to go into teams because this is enterprise. But with the free version, you get 5 Zaps. So a Zap is an automation. It's a series of steps that happen at any given time that can be triggered. So we'll look at them a bit later on, but a Zap is an automation, and then a task are steps within that automation. So again, we'll look at those. So with the free version, you have 5 automations, 100 tasks. These are single step Zaps. So that means that you can have an event triggering one application, and then you can have one action that does something in another application. So again, we'll look at that. Then when we move to the starter for £15 a month, we get more tasks, we get 20 Zaps, but crucially, we get multi-step Zaps here. So we can have something happen in the application, and then we can have many steps that trigger and do all sorts of things. So we can have as many as we want. The other thing to note is premium apps. So Zapier connects to over 3,000 different applications. Some of these are deemed as premium apps, things like Xero, I think QuickBooks. So if you need to automate using those tools, then you need this starter plan. And then we get filters and formatters and things we'll look at a little bit. And then finally, the professional, just more of the same thing. So much more tasks, unlimited automations, so Zaps, 2-minute updates. So this is if something happens in one application, it will trigger something 2 minutes later, whereas the other two are 15-minute updates. A lot of the times that doesn't matter, but it depends what you're doing. And then crucially on this one is the custom logic paths. So when you have automation, sometimes it doesn't just go 1, 2, 3, 4. It wants to split off and do different things depending on the information that you have. So this is the custom logic. So that's the pricing plans. One thing to also note is that if you're on the starter plan and it does everything you want, but you're using more tasks than you have, you can just buy more tasks. You don't have to upgrade to the professional. And this is crucial sometimes if you have an event or some special seminar or something like that 1 month, and it peaks up because you're doing a lot of automations, but it's not the usual trend. You could just buy some for 1 month and then drop them again. So let's jump into Zapier and we'll build a Zap as well. We'll just look at the dashboard first. Any questions on that so far? Anything in the chat, Yvonne?
No, not yet.
Okay, good. Right, so we're logged into Zapier now, and we're just going to go through the dashboard and then we're going to build a Zap. So the first thing you'll see when you log in, you have some recommendation flows. So Zapier does a good job of giving you some ideas of what you can do and also gives you templates to do them. So like this one, for instance, here, when you get an email, if it has an attachment, automatically put that attachment into Dropbox. So if that's something you want to do, you can just click on this button and you can start to connect your applications, your Google account and your Dropbox, and you can start building that automation. So there's a few down here. And then also there's a few ways of doing the same thing. So if we want to create an automation, we can just click in here and start. So if we just say Google Forms, we can pick Google Forms and we want to put some information into Mailchimp. And we can just choose Mailchimp, and then we can start to build the triggers and actions and things. Also, it will give us some recommendations down here based on what we've chosen. So this is not the way I do it, probably because I'm used to doing it the other way, but this is an option to start. I'll show you how I do it in a minute. So then if we continue down the left and we go to Zaps, so this is our account and these are all of our Zaps, so all of our automations that we have. And you can create folders. As you start using more and more of these, it can get quite messy. So you can create folders to store all your automations in. And then we have some automations here, and we'll have a look at one of those shortly. So for now, we'll just come back to this. Transfers, we're going to skip over. Basically, Zapier works on just like one thing happening. So an event happening over here. So somebody fills in a job form, and then that job form gets moved and an action moves it into Mailchimp or something like that. It's not for bulk moving data. So what transfers is Zapier's attempt to address that problem where you might want to move 1,000 records into Mailchimp or something like that. So apps. So when we click on apps, these are all the applications that we've connected to Zapier. So if you want to connect your Gmail to Dropbox, then you need to put in your account details for Gmail and Dropbox. And this is, you'll do it in the Zap, but this is where you come to manage it. So all these applications here are ones that we've used or we're testing with, and we can see how many Zaps and things are connected to it. The only reason you need to come in here is if you change your password. So if we changed our password in Acuity Scheduling, then that would break all the Zaps because they're using the old password. So you would come in here and change the password in here. And then finally, we'll look at just Zap history. So this is where you can just monitor and manage your Zaps. So you can see how many you're using, how many tasks are running, and also which tasks are using, which Zaps are using the most tasks. So we can just see here, and we can see down here which ones are using the most tasks, so 90, 82. So it's just a way to keep an eye on things and do you need more tasks and that kind of thing. We can also just come here as well and look to see if there are any errors. And then lastly, just here is explore. So again, these are just templates that you can use, some inspiration. So you can, if you're a marketing, you can click on marketing and search for automations by marketing. So get some inspiration, but also get the templates to then, save you some time in building them. Excuse me. Okay, so let's go back and let's build a Zap then. So if I just click on Zaps here, and then I'm going to scroll down to this, the folder that I've created earlier, this one here. And we have one Zap in here already that's switched off, but we're going to build this again from scratch. So what we're going to do here, this is a common scenario. So we're using Google Forms. This could be job form, type form, or just inquiry from your website perhaps. And we're asking for email address, and we're asking for the name and the product that they're interested in. And then we're asking for permission to add them to the mailing list. So if you've ever used Google Forms, when somebody fills in a form, it writes it to a Google Sheet. So we can see some previous entries in here in this Google Sheet. Now, what we want to do when somebody fills this in from our website or we email them, we want to add them to Mailchimp. So we want to add them to a subscription in Mailchimp, and we want to tag them with the product that they're interested in so we can start a mailing campaign. So this is what we're going to do. We're going to build it from scratch now. So all we need to do in this folder is choose create a Zap. Excuse me. So first of all, let's just give this a name. Always good to name things. Okay, so we've got a name, and then we have a trigger. So the first step is always a trigger. So what is going to cause this automation to run? So we have schedule. So sometimes you might use a schedule. You want to run something every day or every hour or every week. So we could start with a schedule. RSS, I'm not going to talk about because it's very rarely used. And then webhooks. Webhooks is a bit advanced, but even though there are 3,000 applications you can connect to, there may be some that don't connect to Zapier directly, but webhooks is a way you can use to connect to these services that aren't in Zapier. So just bear that in mind. If you're using something that's a bit unusual, then it maybe you can use webhooks to trigger automations anyway. But the most common way to trigger an automation is through the apps and an event happening in an application somewhere. So in our instance, it's in a Google form. So when a Google form gets filled in, we're choosing Google Forms, and then we have the trigger event. So depending on the application you're using, you may get multiples of these different things depending on what the vendor gives you access to. You'll see in a minute when we use Mailchimp, there's a lot more options. In Google Forms, there are just two. So when a new response enters a spreadsheet. So this is what we want. When someone fills the form in, we want to trigger this automation. So then we just choose the account. So again, if you've not connected your account at this point, this is where it'll prompt you for your username and password, or maybe a key, depending on the vendor again. And this is where you'd go to manage your apps we looked at earlier. Because I've already connected, I can just choose my connection here. So I'm connected to my Google account, to Google Forms, and the spreadsheet I want to connect to, it's going to give me a list of them now, is this one here. And this is just this form here. So we're telling it to look in here and trigger when something happens. So the worksheet is just worksheet 1. And that's it, we can continue. So like I said, Zapier will only trigger when it's turned on. So if we turn this on now, it's not going to do anything about these because they're already there. It's waiting for a trigger. It's waiting for the next event to happen. But what we can do, we can use the data in here to test with. So I can just say test trigger, and what it will do and go away and get 3 records that we can work with. So we can just test. So you can see it's got A, B, and C responses. If we look at A, we can see it's pulled some information from A, which relates to this record here. So we've got a record to work with. We can just continue. We know that bit's working. So our trigger is set up now. So now we need an action, and our action is to connect Mailchimp. So we're just going to search for Mailchimp, and we're going to click on that. And now if I click in here, events, you'll see what I mean. So Mailchimp has lots of different options we can do: create campaigns, custom events, add subscribers, unsubscribe, tag, search, lots of options in here. We're only interested in adding and updating the subscriber. So what this will do, it will add the email address and name to Mailchimp, but if it already exists, it will just update it. So we'll just continue at this. Again, we choose the account. I already have mine connected, so we can continue. And now we can choose an audience. So if you use Mailchimp, then you'll know that you have audiences. I only have one, and this is an old account, so please ignore the title of this. So basically, we've selected an audience in Mailchimp, and now we need to add the email address of the person that filled in the form. Well, we can't type this because we don't know it. It's going to change every time. So we need to reference step A. And if we click on here, we have the option. So we can say here, email address. We don't know the email address, but we know it will always be in this field here. So take the email address from step 1 from the email field. So we can just put that in there. The name, we have the name of the person. So we're going to pull the name from the name field. And that's all we need. And we're going to tag as well. So we want to tag the person with the product that they're interested in. So we can add that to Mailchimp as well. So we're just going to choose tags here. So when I choose tags here now, it's going to load from Mailchimp all the existing tags. I don't want to do that. I want to just tag it with the answer to this question here. Okay, so that's it. I've created this. The other information you can fill in. So if you've got that, if you're collecting that in your form, phone numbers and things, then you can map them. We just want this for now. So we're just going to continue and we're going to test and review this. So when you test this now, it's actually going to go to Mailchimp and it's going to update Mailchimp and put this record in there. Okay, so it was successful. And if we go over to Mailchimp and we just refresh this, we should see the top there, Elon, and we should see the tag make, I think it was. So we can see here, this has been added, the name has been added, and it's also been tagged. So if you've got automations in Mailchimp, then you can start an automation campaign. Then when this comes in, okay, start drip feeding Elon the information about make. So you can start to chain together your automations. So if we just look at what we've done, then we've created one zap. It's a one-step zap. So this is a trigger, it doesn't count, and this is a step. So this would take one task. Every time it ran, it would take one task. So remember on the free one, we have 100 tasks. So we could run this 100 times. Any questions, Yvonne?
I've been answering them as we've been going so far.
Okay, great. So we'll just look at a couple more things now then. So if we look at the form we have, we're asking, do you want to be added to our mailing list? And there's an option for yes and no. Well, at the moment, our Zap is just going to run regardless. It's not looking at that. So what we can do, again, if you're on the starter plan here, we can add something in between, a filter. So we're going to add a filter to filter out those that say no. So Zapier, as well as having all these applications you can connect to, they have their own tools as well. So there's a lot you can do with filtering. You can format. So one problem you have when you're moving data from one system to another is dates. Dates can be a nightmare because dates are different on different systems. So you can add a format, a step in there to take the existing date, modify it to how the system you're passing it to expects, and do that kind of thing. You can do that with text. You can add delays. The one we're interested in at the minute is filter. So we're going to add a filter. I'm going to say only continue. If we show all options here, only continue if the answer to this question contains the word yes. So if we choose continue here, it will show us what would have happened. So remember, it's evaluating the record we have in here, the test record that we have. So the answer was yes. So we can see in here that it would have continued. So it tells us it would have continued and it would have gone to this next step, which is what we want. If the answer was no, the Zap would stop here and that would be the end of it. It would finish that process. So now we have 2 steps in here. We've dealt with the filtering. What we also might want to do is add a step that goes back into our spreadsheet here and updates this column to say, yes, I've been added to Mailchimp. So again, we can do that. We can just add another step here. And we're working with Google Sheets here. So we want to update the Google Sheet. And what do we want to do? We want to update a spreadsheet row. So again, you can see here with Google Sheets, we have lots of options: create rows, create worksheets, copy worksheets. We're interested in just updating a row. So we're going to choose that action. We're going to continue. We're going to select my Google account again and continue. And now we need to tell it what we want to update. So let's just tell it where the file is first. The spreadsheet we want to update is this one here. So again, we're coming back and updating this. The worksheet is the same. And now this is the crucial bit, the row. So what row do we want to update? We want to, excuse me, we want to update the row at number 1. So we know this was the row that was created. And if we look, as well as the information that's entered, we also get the row ID. So we know it's row 5. So we can come down here now and we can say the row, we go to custom, we go to step 1 and we get the row ID. So again, because that's dynamic, every time it's going to change, but we know where the information will be. So we can say update that row and we can type manual in here because we just want it to say yes every time. So if we continue now and we test and we jump back here quickly, we should see this row update here. There it is. So what we've done then is we've taken information from a Google form. We've evaluated if they want to be on our mailing list. If they do, we've added them to Mailchimp, and then we've updated the spreadsheet to say we've done it. You could also then add another step in here, maybe to email somebody to say there's a new client, there's someone interested in a product, or whatever it is you want to do. Again, you could take this further, depending on what you're doing, you know, add to your CRM system, create a folder for that client, add them to your account system ready for invoicing. All of these kind of things can be done through these steps. So once you've set this up, and you can see it's taken 10-15 minutes to set up, that's just going to trigger and run every time. So all we need to do then is just publish and turn this on, and the Zap is ready to run. I'm just using at the moment, when the problem with that, there's a problem with Zapier. When you are editing a Zap, it turns it off. And it's not a problem if it's not being used much, but if you've got something that's taking orders every few minutes, you don't want to turn that Zap off. So there's a beta version of something where you can have drafts that they're working on, so you can edit the Zap without turning it off and then republish it. So this is something that I'm using at the minute. So that is the process of creating a Zap. So now we have 3 tasks, 3-step Zap. So this would all work within the starter pack. And if we go back here, and if we just look in Zap history, we can see previously run, and I'll just show you so you can troubleshoot, see exactly what happens. So let's just go to here and we can see one that ran earlier. Yeah, so if we look at this one here that ran earlier, we click on it, we can see that data came in. It was added to Mailchimp. Oh, that's it. It was just 2 on that step. But this is where you would come in. So normally you don't need to worry about it. This is the point. You set it up, you ignore it, and you only want to know if there's errors. So Zapier will email you when there's an error, so you can deal with that as well. So most of the time you don't need to come in here, but this is just where you'd come and troubleshoot and see exactly what happened. So I know that was quick, but that's a basic overview of Zapier and what you can do with it. We will provide some more information as well. After this, you'll be emailed a link where you can find more videos online and things like that. Also, we offer training. If you need training in Zapier, then we do beginner and advanced one-to-one training or group training. So if you need any more help, then yeah, we're here to help. Yeah, so that's it really. If there's any questions.
I've gone through most of them, I think.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, I can't see any more. Has anybody got anything else they'd like to know?
Who, just a hands up, who uses Zapier already? Okay. And who's thinking of using it? Who's gonna dabble now? Okay. Okay. Okay, well, that's great then. I mean, if there's no questions, that's fine. If there are any questions, then feel free to drop them in the group and ask some questions. If you need any help, then get in touch with us and we're happy to help.
I have just one question. Is there, when would you say is not a good time to use Zapier? Because I had a client who suddenly wanted to try and connect like everything, and I was like, just slow down a minute there. And one of the things they did, they ran a Google Calendar and an Outlook calendar, I think it was, and they set a Zap up so that when one meeting perhaps was put in one, they put it into the other, and it just ate Zaps like, you know, nobody's business, and suddenly they were having to sort of, you know, increase their sign up. So, you know, when is it not healthy to use it, I guess? Is there a
Yeah, and it's a good question. I mean, before you automate things, you really need to understand that process, and it needs to be a process that happens, you know, pretty much the same regularly. People try to automate processes that have so many, you know, variations, or, you know, that it's very difficult to do. So find the easy wins first, find the things that always happen, always the same, and do that. Try not to automate everything at once. Just get the big wins and then move on to the little, and just keep chipping away at it as well. Some things not to automate as well. The reason to automate is to do all the mundane things that gives you more time to, you know, give time to your customers and things like that. So try not to automate too much of sending emails to clients and things. Try and use the time you've saved to use that, you know, personal touch a little bit more. But yeah, just take it little steps at a time.
Thank you.
You're welcome. Okay, all good.
Okay, thank you very much for coming, everybody.
Yeah.
We'll email the recording out.
Yeah, okay. All right, have a good day, everybody. Take care.